So, hello, this is Pod Potatoes with Mark Selzer. We are recording this at a McDonald's on Hollywood Boulevard, which is funny, I think. So that's the background noises that you hear. I like to record where there is background noise. It gives them more life. And with me is StephanieA.IsComedy. And say hi.
Hi.
And Eileen Weiner.
Hi.
They have both been on my podcast before. Eileen, we did a musical podcast, and that was fun. But today we're not going to do any music. We're not going to break out into any song in the McDonald's. But we're looking for another place. We were currently at Mel's doing the recording, but they decided not to turn off their music. They used to turn off their music for us. You can hear them calling the orders out in the background at McDonald's. So, Mitzi Shore died today.
Who was that?
She was the owner and creator of the Comedy Store.
Oh my God.
So later, I should probably go to the Comedy Store, maybe, and say goodbye.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's too bad. You know, they have a good policy there of allowing out of work, unloved, unwanted, unemployed comedians to hang out in the back if there's room, which is good.
What do you mean hang out in the back?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Just sit in the back in the seats without having to pay a cover charge.
Without, that's their policy there, which is nice. And it's always been a good policy. So if you're a comedian, and but you know they can still say no to you. They can still say no, but hopefully that. So I hang out there a lot. I sit out in the back and watch the pros work.
Now, didn't she also offer classes, right? Didn't she have the whole workshop?
I don't think so. I think that she kind of said that the Comedy Store was kind of a place where comedians would check out, work out their material, and kind of a class on its own, kind of a class, you know, where comedians could develop, and she would allow past comedians through who she thought had something to develop.
I could have sworn she had comedy workshops, like classes, like teach you how to do.
Really?
Yeah, like a book or something. I could be wrong, but I'm going to see.
She might have, because I know they have them at places like the Second City and stuff like
They
that.
do. Flapper, places like that, but I don't think that the Comedy Store, they may have offered them at some point in the past when I was unaware of it, but they have not done it since I have been there. But you know, they do it at Flappers, but you know, Flappers is, you know, people look down on you now in the comedy world if you're offering stuff like that.
Really? Why?
Well, in the stand-up world, it has to do with just looking to exploit fellow comedians. It's considered like a bringer show. Mm-hmm. Bringer shows and comedy classes and stuff like that are...
I hate bringer shows.
The only place I want to bring me is to orgasm. That's it. You don't do that at a comedy club.
Right, and they do...
But I did a bringer show at the Comedy Store.
They do bringer shows there. But again, they do bringer shows everywhere because they have to. Although I do not think they do it at the Improv. They may at the Laugh Factory, I do not know, but bringer shows are looked down upon as well as comedy classes as being something you're exploiting comedians and wannabe comedians.
Well, that's how I got started. Had I not taken a stand-up class, I wouldn't be doing stand-up.
Well, and then you're defending them, and you know everyone has a right to their opinion about comedy classes and whether or not they help. I just went to open mics every night for 5 years. and
Some people don't have the
shitty
heart
bar
for that.
shows.
I would have never done something
Really?
You could take
like
the
that.
punishment. I mean,
I can take the punishment.
It's amazing.
I can take all the shitty and then the shitty crazy people and insane people.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna go get ice cream. I'll be back.
All right.
Need anything?
You know you
All
get
right.
a large Diet Dr Pepper, no ice. Should
All
only
right.
be $1.
Large Diet Dr Pepper.
Should only be $1. And so yeah, you did that, and that's good. And the only thing I would consider is there's something called the Master Class with Steve Martin. I would consider that good, because that was the beginning of my interest in stand-up. I always loved stand-up comedians. I used to always sneak up late at night so I could watch stand-up comedians on television, and I would watch the Michael Douglas show, who was like really big in the 70s, so I'm sure you've never heard of, but he had a talk show, and he always had a stand-up comedian on. They'd have all these boring guests, and then they'd have a stand-up comedian, and then I would go, and I'd wait till the stand-up comedian to come on, then I would leave.
Did you say
I
diet or
wasn't into
regular?
stand-up
Diet.
comedians
Okay.
like that.
Huh?
I wasn't into stand-up comedians like
You
that. I
weren't?
didn't really watch stand-up or anything. No.
And then when Steve Martin's album came out, I used to memorize the whole album, and then I would perform it for the other children at my in junior high school at recess.
So you're really a true comic.
Well, that I did, but I didn't get up on the stage until about 5 years ago, though. I didn't really get up on the stage
But I
because,
mean, you have like a true appreciation
Yeah.
for
yeah.
that particular discipline.
Someday I hope I can write something that's as good as Let's Get Small or Excuse Me or some of his more famous routines. And he's great. I still know a lot of his material by heart. I still have it by memory. In fact, I was thinking of just going and dressing as Steve Martin and then going around performing his material. And just appearing at clubs as a Steve Martin clone. I don't know what I'd call myself. Clone Martin, or maybe just call myself Steve Martin and just go ahead and do around and do his material. See where I can get booked, and just go do it. It'd be fun. It's postmodern. It's postmodern conceptual art. Since I'm actually a performance artist, I'm a postmodern conceptual artist. And so that would be good. But we're waiting for Eileen to come back. She's ordering food at McDonald's. And there's some kind of music playing, which is why we came here, to avoid the music in Mel's. And now they're playing some kind of music over there. And that's probably copyrighted as well. So this could
This
get,
sounds more like a jingle of some sort, though.
yeah, it could be a public domain jingle. We will see. I think they have algorithms on YouTube that can pull off.
That's true.
Pull
Well,
off.
actually, now it sounded like a commercial.
Yeah. If so, it's probably all copyrighted. But they'll pull. They can pull things off of YouTube if they find that it has stuff on it that is copyrighted. They can just yank it off of there. They can yank your video off of there, like I think automatically or something like that. But they're working on it. They're working on it. I think they already have it. So what have you been doing? So you started doing improv. You didn't start doing stand-up.
Well, like, what do you mean?
When did you start?
Stand up?
Stand-up and improv.
Oh, well, I mean, I'll start with improv. I mean, when I was in college, I was a theater major, so we had to take improv. I mean, it wasn't anything that we went into too deeply, We kind of like raised the surface with it, so I've been familiar with improv since then. And I actually have a published improv at UCLA. If anybody goes and dig up in the archives, it's there.
Really?
But yeah, in undergrad is when I first became familiar with
so what
improv. But we study improv techniques as a part of a broader or bigger class, a bigger acting class. So I never specifically took improv until I came over to UCB. Now, stand-up, I took a class.
Okay, so tell us about that.
The class I took was I took 2 classes. So the first one was in 2012, somewhere around there, 2012. And then I think the second one I took was in 2013. So I would say between 2011 and 2013. So how long ago was that? That's probably like 6-7 years ago. But I wasn't doing stand-up regular or anything. I just took the class and I did the class performances. And then after that, people were like, oh, you need to start going to open mics. You need to, try to get on shows. So I started going to bringer shows and doing those. That got old real quick because once everybody sees your material a couple of times, you can't keep finding people to come to your shows. So then I kind of stopped. Because I was like, unless it's a show that somebody's specifically asking me to be on or something like that, there's no point in me continuing to do these free bringer shows.
Right, so those are people who don't know out there who are listening, what a bringer show is a lot of people in the comedy community look down on them. And what they are is an independent producer will go to a comedy club, say, do you have a room I could use during a time, a back room, or even your main stage during a time when you don't generally have comedians on there. And what they'll do is they'll rent a stage from them, and then they'll ask each comedian that they have on their show to bring 2 people, 8 people, 10 people, 15 people, depending on the bringer show, depending on what they think they can get away with. And then they'll use that as a way to fill the room. And the club makes money, and it helps keep the doors open of the comedy clubs. But a lot of people feel this is very exploitive and very bad, and it perverts
stressful.
Comedy. And
I remember being stressed out about it, like, they're not going to let me go on stage. I don't have one person here.
Right.
And scared to tell the booking person, scared to tell them, like, don't have anybody. No one showed up. Like, I'll buy 2 drinks if you guys want me to do that, but I don't have anybody. I remember I was really like nervous and scared.
Right.
And bought like a fake ticket. I remember going online and buying a ticket for myself to pretend like I had someone coming.
Right. And that's it's just too much to get people. You're trying to learn to do comedy, and then a lot of people feel that you really shouldn't be up at a comedy club unless you've been out in the circuit for 5 years anyway. And a lot of people think it's just exploiting people. And then, also the people that are paying to go to the bringer show, they could be spending $40-$50 each to see basically a bunch of amateurs do comedy. Usually they'll try to get like a headliner who's a pro comic and give him a little bit of money, or just ask him to do it.
Right.
And so what'll happen is you have a 2-drink minimum. You could have a charge to get in, $15. And you have a 3 or 4 item minimum, and then there's parking and everything else. So the aspiring comedian ends up paying $30-$40 a minute in a lot of cases for stage time, which is horrendous. At an open mic, you're paying, if you're getting, a lot of them are free, and a lot of them you're just paying $5 or $3 or buy one thing. Sometimes at a coffee shop, which is like a banana, which would cost $1. So you're paying only that for 3 to 6 minutes generally in an open mic. So it's a lot more economical. But a lot of people think these bringer shows are they are very exploitive. But they have them also in music. the music world as well. We do the same thing, you know.
And
It's pretty much
we
LA.
were just talking about, I was just talking today with someone about how we used to have those, the casting workshops. Remember those? The casting
I've
where you
never
pay.
been to any of that stuff. So tell us about that.
So many of those. Well, basically what it was, they had these places around town. I don't know if I can say their names because I heard it's been outlawed or something like that.
I don't care. Go ahead. Say it. No one's
They
going
had
to sue
places
me.
like Real Pros. They had places like One-on-One Productions. They had, what was it called? TVI or something like that. But they had these different workshop places all around town. And you would pay to go to casting workshops where they would have, you know, well-known casting directors from different shows, different, either like from episodics or from film, but they were from film and television. Sometimes they were currently casting projects, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes people didn't even have an office, but they were just a casting director.
Right.
And so they would charge us anywhere from $40 to $300
Wow.
to attend these workshops. And you know, they would tell you, oh, you can't give them your headshot and resume, but you could submit it to their office. And you know, because it wasn't supposed to be like a direct transaction that you are paying in order to audition in front of these people, but that's essentially what we're doing. And they rarely call people in. I mean, I probably spent thousands of dollars.
Really?
Over the years, yeah, I think I probably spent thousands of dollars at those. Now, I will say it paid off in the sense that my first paid television gig did come from attending one of those workshops.
All right.
And that particular casting director liking me. So there were like a couple of jobs that I got that were my first, you know, non-theater, like television credits I got from that. So in a sense, you know, the thousands of dollars paid off, and that the thousands of dollars got me some credits.
So you think those mostly though, you think for a lot of people it's just a lot of exploitation?
Yeah, because it's like, how do you? Everyone used to complain about like offices will tell you not to blindly submit to them. They're not opening their mail. They're not opening these packages. Like, you have to be referred by so-and-so. You have to be called in by such-and-such. So everybody's like, well, how do I get the experience? How do I get casted? How do I get out there if I can't even submit?
Right.
So this was the way that people felt like was a way going around that. Like, okay, if I go to these casting workshops, it's a way of getting in front of these casting directors. It's a way of getting in front of these producers and stuff like that. So, hey, maybe they'll see my talent and they'll be willing to bring me on or bring me in for a legitimate audition. So that's what everybody in town was doing it. All my friends, everybody I knew, everybody was going to casting workshops. So they were making money hand over fist, because they would charge you a membership fee. Some of them would charge you like a monthly fee even. They even had this one I used to go to, they had reps that worked there. And so the reps would get commissions based off of how many workshops they sold their clients.
Right.
So they would call you and say, hey, we've got this comedy workshop coming up in March. It's going to be from March 12th to March 30th. And it's going to be 2 weeks with so-and-so and so. It's $250. Do you want to buy in now? You know, and that was the hustle. That's what they did.
Yeah, I know that, you know, the second you say you want to be anything in LA, you're surrounded by wolves with their fangs dripping, going through your wallet, you know, trying to get the money out of your pocket, whether it's a $3 from a person living in their car at an open mic to whether it's $3,000 for a casting workshop or a headshots or anything they get you for.
I'm sitting here drooling right now trying to figure out which pocket it's in.
It's
no money on me now.
And then you've got to dress the part. You got to, you know, fake it till you make it. So there's some money that goes into that. You know what I'm saying? Trying to keep the image up, and it's just extremely expensive and it's difficult.
There was a new thing on the news today. Did you see that? On like it was on CBS, which is the only channel I get now that has smart TV, about a woman that they charged her $300 one of these talent agencies, and they said that they'd get her audition for one of these reality shows, and in reality they didn't have the audition, so she contacted the television station and they got a refund of their money for.
Yeah, I remember when I first started out, my first quote unquote audition, agency. I paid these people. I didn't know, I was green.
Oh yeah.
I was very young. I had no, and I remember telling somebody like, yeah, I paid them $200 registration fee, and they were like, what? An agent is supposed to pay you like, like they're supposed to get 10 to 15% or whatever jobs they give you. You're not supposed to be paying them. I'll never forget those people. They were called Malibu Talent. They were in Burbank. And I remember they sent me on one audition. It was like a cattle call. It was like an audition where there were literally hundreds of people there. I think I may have passed by a table for 2 seconds and slated my name, and that was it.
Yeah, well, that's
it was terrible. It was a hustle.
A lot of that stuff is also illegal now too, and people are doing it illegally or working on ways to get around the laws in some kind of way, and some are still getting busted even though they're working out with lawyers some kind of way around the law, and then they make the law again differently. But there's a lot of.
It used to be terrible. I'm quite sure things are getting better, but even more difficult in a certain kind of a way. But it used to be bad. I remember going to an agent's office. I was so dumb. I can't believe, like, now I would never do anything like this. But back then you don't know.
Right.
And he was like, okay, I need you to come back, but I need you to come back with a bikini. And I was like, okay, I didn't know.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I need to see you in a bikini, because there may be things I may need to send you out on. And I was like, okay. I came back. I'll never forget, I had a long jacket on, a long coat, and some heels. And I had it closed up like this. And I walked into his office, and he was like, okay, you're ready? And I'm like, yeah. And I opened it up.
Did he take pictures?
No, he just kind of sat behind his desk and looked and was like, okay, yeah, that's, we can work with that.
Well, I've heard a lot of stories about women, and they need to go to auditions, and the part requires them to show their breasts, and the women go in there.
People were telling me.
And you have to show your breasts, and they say, you okay with that? And they need to see their breasts, because they need to look, well, if they really want the person for the job and they have terrible breasts, they have to use a body double, a breast body double.
Right. Well, I guess he was thinking along those lines. I don't know. I was just going to speak to representation.
He could have been looking for you also as a body double for somebody, too.
He could have.
They have somebody that has really terrible breasts or really terrible legs, like what's her face in, what was that movie with the Runaway Bride? What was it called?
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
She's got bad legs.
What was it called?
It was called Runaway Bride.
It was called. Anyways, they used a body double in there for her, and I saw an interview once of her body double for it. That when you'd see the picture of her on the cover of that movie, that's just her head. It's not her body.
Well, this guy never sent me on not one audition.
Pretty Woman.
So.
Pretty Woman, yeah, that was Pretty Woman. So, yeah, that was filmed. Part of that was filmed right up the street. There's the building right up the street. It's on Las Palmas, where they filmed the scene where they're going up and down the fire escape. That's actually on a building that's only a 2-story building down the street from where we are. We could throw a stone and hit that building from where we're sitting. But it's not
exciting.
I've never been able to sit through that movie. I've only been able to sit through part of it.
I used to love that movie when
Really?
I was little. Pretty Woman.
I've never been able to sit through it, yeah.
And it made me be like, oh, maybe I could be a streetwalker in Hollywood when I grow up. It was like a Cinderella story for me.
Really?
Yes.
How many women went into prostitution because of that movie? Who knows?
Richard Gere was fine. That's his name, right?
Richard Gere, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was cute. And I was like, ooh.
There was a movie that was filmed in 1982 right in here. It's a cult movie. It was called Angel. And it was about, you see Hollywood Boulevard, what it was like in 1982,
I can't even
83. And it was about a girl who was in high school, and her mom abandoned her.
Oh, God.
And she just abandoned her in the apartment, and she just pretended that her mom was sick in bed, and went out and sold herself on the street with a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard.
Terrible.
And then during the day she went to high school, at night she was a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard. Then she took the cash and deposited it into her mom's checking account, and then paid all the bills with the check from her mom that her mom had left behind. And then some of the kids at school found out that she was a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard at night and spread it throughout the school. And then she was expelled from the school. And then one of her friends who was a prostitute was killed by a serial killer. And then she went out and killed the serial killer. And
that's actually a very realistic sounding
and it's
story.
called Night, and it's called Angel, and there were like 4 sequels. And each time that they played, the girl that played was switched each time. There's 4 sequels, but it's with a different girl each time. It's just called the first one's called Angel, I believe. And you can find the movie. It's a really weird piece of kitsch to find. I believe you can find it on YouTube.
Well, I went to school with a prostitute. It was middle school.
Yeah.
It wasn't even high school. It was middle school.
How old was she?
Well, the thing about it, she was older. Like, she should have been in high school, but she was in middle school still. And I remember I had her for 7th period humanities. And I grew up in San Francisco, so she was a prostitute in Chinatown.
Was she a teacher or a student?
No, she was a student.
Well, I mean, those are your prime selling years, man,
Yeah, we were in I was in 7th grade at the time, and I believe she was too, but technically she probably should have been a 9th grader.
How old was she?
I think she was like 14.
14 years old?
Yeah, her name was Shirley Tam.
And she was out and she was selling herself on the street in Chinatown in San Francisco?
She wasn't on the street. She had a pimp, but yes, it was in Chinatown, and there was a word for it. They didn't call it prostitute. Essentially, that's what it was. And basically what she did, she would be tired the next day. Like when we were in school, she would be tired. She would sleep in classes, and she'd been up all night. And what she would do is she would be sort of like entertainment for like these Chinese gangsters. So like when they were playing mahjong and they were like,
like a geisha girl kind of thing.
It was kind of something like that. And like she'd have to stay up all night with them and kind of like, be entertained. And sometimes she would have bruises. She had a pimp. Sometimes she would have bruises. She used to tell us everything, every detail. I would sit there like, oh my God. Yes, she was very grown. That's what we called grown back in the day.
So tell us one of her stories that she...
Oh God. She told us about how there was another girl who was also a prostitute who had a baby by one of the gangsters or, higher ups.
These were Asian gangsters?
Yeah, they have like kind of like a Chinese mafia.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So it was somebody in that whole network of people. Anyway, and she wasn't a wife or anything. She was one of these girls, and she had a baby, and the baby was like it was a little boy, and he was like maybe 2 years old or something like that. And sometimes Shirley would be left with the little boy, and they would pay her to keep the little boy, and she'd be stuck because some days she wouldn't come to school, and usually she didn't come to school because she was taking care of this little boy while the mother worked and stayed up all night and partied and smoked and was with these men. And so the little boy, I remember I saw the little boy one day. The little boy had cigarette burn marks on him.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he had bruises, he had scars. And I remember feeling so like I didn't know what to do. I'm only in the 7th grade.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I remember thinking, something is wrong with this. Like, somebody needs to save this child. And it's like, I wanted to bring a little boy home with me, It's like, and
someone needs to save the mother.
I'm sorry?
So someone needs to save the mother.
Yeah.
So the men...
But I remember she got paid well because she would just like pull out like a wad of money. And I remember her telling me she was getting like $100 a day to keep this little boy. And to us, I mean, a 7th grader, somebody getting $100 a day just to watch a little kid, something we do anyway.
But she was having sex with somebody too.
Yes, she was doing that too. I always wonder what happened to her.
Probably dead.
Probably a billionaire,
I hope
she
not.
saved her money.
Probably dead. If you
get in and get out quick enough.
I did meet a woman once.
She was in school, so she wasn't that deep in it. You know what I mean? Like,
She's married. Maybe she's married with 3 kids and happy as
Yeah, and then having
can
the
be.
pimp, usually the pimp
If
gets
she
most
would
of the money.
have, if she would have kept that money, I once met a girl who had a house right above the Roxy on Sunset Boulevard, and she had a nice house with a nice pool. I mean, a nice, what now is probably an $8 million home. But she said she made it all. She worked as a prostitute when she was 15 to about 23, saved all the money, bought the house, and retired.
I've heard of that. Or open businesses. I've heard
But
of
a lot
that.
of those girls don't save the money. A lot of them
They
spend it,
struck out on drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they spend all the money
or
on
their
drugs.
pimp gets it or whatever. She just said she did it independently and just kept all the money and put it in the bank and got interest on it and bought that house with it. And she's retired now, but she said she was a prostitute from about 15 to 23. She says those are the years you can make the most money.
I believe that.
right.
And she retired and with a nice house.
Stormy Daniels isn't doing too bad for
I
herself
read
either.
some memoirs, I never forget, years ago, and I remember I was so enthralled with this book, and I had all my, and they were true stories. It was like a retired prostitute. I remember the book was called "You'll Never Make Love in This Town Again." And
Right.
basically, you remember that book?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And it was this girl who, it was back when the Heidi Fleisch drama,
Right.
it was
Right.
like after that this book was written. And it was like these stories of like 4 different prostitutes and, you know, them telling, you know, their lifestyle and how they were living, what they were doing, you know, in Hollywood and their clients. And that was when I first found out that like Heidi Fleisch wasn't even like the big madam. She was like number 2 or number 3. Like there were people above her that did not get caught.
Oh yeah, no, they just
There's always a
sacrifice.
fall guy.
They always
she was
sacrifice.
like the poop butt. I was like, Heidi Fleisch was the poop butt? And she was naming people. She was name dropping like a mug. Some people she wouldn't name, like she would give them like a alias or what have you. But like the big pimps and madams, I remember the one I remember the strongest, it was a couple. You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. There was a couple, it was a husband and wife.
Well, you know, they never bust the top people.
They
never.
don't bust the top people,
It's
right.
just they bust a minor player who gets set up usually by the other pimps who are in charge and the other madams who are really doing
Right.
the big business. When they get busted, they say, "Hey, I'm going to give you somebody else instead." And then the small person becomes the fall guy or girl. And that's usually what happens. But, you know.
Well, how Heidi Fleisch blew up, if I remember correctly from the book, she started off as an assistant. She was the assistant to some big time madam. And then I think the assistant her boss, the madam, got caught and went to jail for a second. When she went to jail, she left her business in the hands of
Her book and everything. Right?
Yeah, Heidi Fleisch, like, okay, these are the girls, these are the contacts. So then what she did, she just kind of took all the contacts and then started her thing from there. You see what I'm saying? But it was another lady's operation. And that might have been who dropped dime on her. Who knows? Like, oh, bitch, you want to take my clients? I got some.
Probably, yeah, some kind of
You know what I
revenge.
mean?
A lot of times it's
Right.
revenge. So, you know, yeah, it's just, it's too bad. You know, but the thing is also, you hear about all that stuff, is sex workers always exaggerate how much money they
they're
make
making.
and exaggerate how wonderful it is just in order to justify what they're doing to other people.
Well, almost everybody does that. I had a great aunt. I mean, we're talking way back, you know, who was a madam in a whorehouse in Minneapolis, way back like in the Prohibition days.
Where is she? We need to get her. We need
I
to
had some hoes in the
interview these
family
people.
too back in the
She's
day.
passed, and what's funny was that you know, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and one of the ladies in the Jewish community there, apparently, you know, you come from another town, nobody knows what you were doing up there. Apparently, she was one of Aunt Anna's girls.
Oh, really?
Back in the house, but nobody in Virginia knew that, you know, and she married respectably and ran a little hat store and
You'd be
everything.
surprised.
Yeah, she was a corker. Aunt Anna was, she was also in Jewish vaudeville. I got a couple of pictures of her looking like Bonnie and Clyde with her leg up, you know, and the gear and her leg up on one of those fancy-ass cars.
Wow.
I always thought it'd be
sounds like
kind of fun to be a madam. I mean, remember Gone with the Wind? Belle, what's her name? Belle Watley was a madam in that nice house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in my imagination, if I was a madam, like someplace in Nevada where it was legal, I'd make all my young girls set aside X amount of money so they could go to college, or his pipe dream, and so that they'd have a future.
The government even owns a whorehouse in Nevada, or at least they used to. They foreclosed on it for taxes. They weren't paying their taxes.
That's what I heard about.
So they got the government got the whorehouse in the court settlement, in the IRS settlement, and then ran it. I didn't know if it's still going.
Congress. I think Congress is
right.
Okay. Exactly.
kind of like a metaphor for politics in general. Excuse me. Cough. Sorry. Maybe we'll edit that out.
You want
Probably
a cough
not.
drop? I got a cough drop.
Sure. Give me a cough drop.
I think I do.
I need cough medicine.
I keep cough drops on.
Really? The girls have purses. That's why.
Oh yeah, we got everything.
We're not allowed. I usually have so much stuff stuffed in my pocket. I think I look ridiculous. And so I carry a bunch of junk in my pocket.
Yeah, I get the cheap kind now. I like the Ricola, but I get the cheap kind. Here, you can use that for future reference.
All right. Thank you. So, prostitution. I guess we've exhausted the prostitution. We got from Mitzi dying in the Comedy Store to prostitution.
We did.
I used to know
it's like 6 degrees of separation. Kevin Bacon.
I used to know when I first started out doing comedy, there was a girl who was doing comedy with a whore.
Oh yeah, I know the same one you're talking about.
And she used
Canadian,
to talk
right?
about, and she used to talk about.
I saw her too. That lady, she went up on your show. Was she like a porn star too?
No, she did porn, and then they threw her out of porn. She got thrown out of porn for being unreasonable, and then.
She was nasty. I remember.
I hate an unreasonable porn star. That's
for being difficult.
It got in her head. And that's all she ever talked about. You don't realize how it's getting into your head.
And then she did. Then she became a prostitute, and she would advertise, and she would answer calls sometimes on stage from people who were calling her. She would just say, she would be talking to the clients and going through her process of how she would decide who she was going to. How she would vet them.
Yeah, it's a process.
Well, I met her on Craigslist because I was looking for a place to move to, and she was advertising for a roommate, and so we started the initial conversation, and she said that she worked in the adult industry, and I thought, she makes movies, whatever. But then she explained that she saw her clients at the house.
Oh, hell.
And I thought, I don't think so.
And she was a good comedian, but she evidently got busted somehow, and they took her back to Canada. She was here illegally.
Really? That girl, the comedian?
Yeah. She was here illegally, and she got deported
I didn't know
back to Canada.
Oh, my God.
They deported my old boyfriend,
I remember
too.
her going up on your show, maybe a year and a half.
She was on my show, and she was on... She used to perform at Flappers. She also used to perform at the Comedy Store.
What a small world, though, that I met her on Craigslist looking for a room, and then she appeared on stage.
At all.
Yeah, I thought she was funny. But it was very real. It was very real stuff.
Too real.
She had this one routine about how she would vet clients, and it was called the the Sex Nazi. And it was about. Remember there was one, the Soup Nazi. Seinfeld episode.
No
so
soup for you. No sex
for you. So she would do this thing about how she would vet her clients who would call her up, and she would be the sex Nazi, and she would say, no sex for you, and hang up the phone on him. So it was rough comedy, but I thought it was funny. I liked it.
Well, I used to have a job raising funds for nonprofits on the telephone, and when you do that all the time, I thought, maybe I should have one of those, they got those chat lines that make like $1.99 a minute, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But the people that run them make most of the money. And then I thought to myself, I would get so sick and tired of talking about that junk all day. It would just, and it would do a job on my head. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's when my wife, who was a stripper, I used to be married to a stripper.
Oh, my God.
And she would burn out. She would burn out on it, so I would... just tell her, just stop whenever you want to, just stop. You don't have to do it. I would try to talk her out of doing it, but there was really no talking her out of doing it because she was just, that was her thing. She had a thing for strippers. She had a thing for stripping. She was an exhibitionist. She was always naked around the house. So I was just like, okay, let somebody else look at her naked for a while, and it was like, you know, and I would tell her all the bad things that could happen, I would tell her all the bad stuff, you know, and try to talk her out of doing it. Just listen, you know, I want you to be fully informed going into this, what you're doing, you know, because there's going to be a certain burnout of your own sexuality, blah, 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 blah. You can become callous. You could really start hating men. You can start having hostility towards me, which I don't want.
Which is easy enough anyway on a good day.
Easy enough anyway on a good day, right? So she, you know, I tried and I explained everything to her, and I made sure she was safe. But the thing that was the danger to her was the other girls if she made more money, because they used to want to beat her up.
Yeah.
And so
or they'll steal your stuff.
They steal your stuff.
Jealousy and cattiness and competitiveness.
And she would come home and be crying, this old fat lady made more money than me today. And I had to go in and tell her how to, I think I talked about this on my podcast before, I had to go in and tell her about, you know, how to exploit men, because I know I've been exploited plenty of times by lots of women. And I gave her basically lessons on how to do it, and she would go in there, because being a stripper, it doesn't really have to do with how beautiful you are physically. It has to do with how good of a con man or con woman that you are, a con person, and conning the money out of these people.
I know, and most of the ones that always need the money.
So what are they saying to them?
Back in the day, I got a baby at home, I got to have money for the formula, my auntie's sick, you know, and they would prey on their sympathy kind of, and they'd be pretty too.
Yeah.
And well, these weren't strippers as such; they were go-go dancers. I mean, that's what they call it back then. But they call them strippers now. But and it was one of those places where you know, because it devolved as a profession. Because I used to dance, and back in the old days, you'd do your little number, you dance, and you go off and sit in the dressing room and go in the next number. Then it devolved to where you're supposed to be hustling drinks, and then it devolved to now they don't even pay you a salary. Now it's all, you know, all you make is tips off of lap dancing. And back in the day when I did it, you weren't allowed to have any contact at all legally.
Right. They still have some of those rules though, depending on what the
But
is.
in one place you'd hustle hustle fake champagne or tips either way, and that it's a sob story. You got some poor sob story.
Now I think all those bar girls are like, you know how everybody working at the strip club is not a stripper.
Yeah.
And then they just hire girls like that in normal bars too, for guys to buy them drinks and stuff like that, just to bring their numbers up. They also do it at parties where they have people pay to go to parties, and they hire a bunch of girls who are strippers to be there to dance around the pool in bikinis, or just to wear revealing clothes and hang around and flirt with the guys. So the guys think they're really getting somewhere. And what I would do with
that's
her,
what they do. The deal is lead them on so they think they're
lead them on.
You know.
And that's what I would tell her. I would tell her, lead them, make them think that they're going to date you, okay? And then the amount of money that they will give you is pretty endless, because, and I told her how to do it, and to tell the guys that they're special, that they're different than the other guys, okay? That'll make her think that she has noticed them and picked them out and noticed something special about them. Okay, then she had a voicemail that was a different phone number that she would give them, and then she would call them back from a blocked number and tell them, come in and get another lap dance because I want to get to know you better, okay?
Whoa,
get them spending money,
He could have been a pimp.
and then if they start to, then they're never going to go out with her, but it's just to bring them back in as many times as she could, then get as much money out of them as she possibly could. Then if there was a problem, if they started being weird, just contact the bouncer just picks them up by the scruff of the neck and throws them right out of the place. So the only thing I had to do was defend her against the other girls, and sometimes I would have to go in there and basically guard her for a while. But while I was in there, what I would do is when she was up there dancing, she would give me her tips, and I would take her tips and I'd throw them on there onto the stage, and then the other guys would compete with me and start throwing the tips on there, and then she would give me back even more tips, and I'd throw even more money on there and make the other guys compete with me for money.
Oh my God.
And then also, if the guys weren't giving her money, you can't touch the guys, but what I would tell her to do is, if the guys weren't giving her money, to lie down on the stage, and put her feet on them and shake them. She'd have these big stripper boots that are this, a foot tall. I put the feet on them and then also to stomp on them. She could step on their chairs, and she would go down if the guys were giving money and step on their testicles. With her boots, a lot of the guys would like it and start tapping her a lot of money, and that's what she would do to make sure that they would give money. So basically, she would attack them if they weren't giving money. And a lot of the guys would like it.
She was a dominatrix and stripper all at once.
Then she got in a fight once at a strip club with a girl and decided she liked it and decided to become a female boxer. And for a while, she was ranked number 3 in her weight class.
She was wild.
So you're taking off now, Stephanie?
Yeah,
you have to go?
Parking. I have to go.
Well, wonderful. You've been a wonderful guest for the second time.
Yes, same here.
It was a pretty good podcast. We've had some good information today about various topics. And thank you, Stephanie. So, bye-bye.
Love you. So this is like Me 3 instead of Me 2, right?
Right. This is the Me 3 movement right here. So that's some good information. That's the second time I've had her on the podcast. She likes to be on the podcast. She's good. She's got a good voice and has some interesting stories to tell.
She's cool.
So, it's good.
Very pleasant.
Good stuff. Very pleasant lady.
I got a stomach ache eating this McDonald's food.
You have a stomach ache from eating the McDonald's?
I ate too much. I've been starving myself lately to try to lose weight.
Well, I wonder how long this... So yeah, I taught my wife how to be a terrible exploiter of men. And,
the one thing I couldn't do is, just like you said, you have to be really heartless to do that. I mean, the one club I worked in Austin, I would see guys come in with their paychecks that had wives and babies at home.
Man.
And they'd spend their whole paycheck at this topless bar, and they'd go home to to their family with nothing. And the really good, heartless, dancer could suck every last nickel of it. I just didn't have the heart. For me, most of my regulars were just alcoholics, just kind of functional alcoholics who buy me like a little bottle and we sit and chat. Because I had too much heart for it. And besides, they paid a really good salary anyway, so I didn't need to hustle much. Back in those days, it was, like I said, entirely different than it is now. Right.
Well, no, it sounds like those girls had the same idea that the girls do now. And, I just... as far as teaching her to exploit the men and their vulnerabilities, I just thought
you're absolutely right too.
You know what? Those men are going to hopefully learn a lesson. Just understand people are going to take your money, and that's $40 or $50 or $150 or $1,000 till you smarten up.
And they train you in the clubs too. I was really naive and a spaced out hippie, and they said, look, if you don't get that money, some other broad's going to get that money. They're there to give it away, so it might as well be you. So they kind of, teach you to be heartless.
What's the saying? Never give a sucker an even break.
Yeah.
And a sucker and his money. What's that other saying there?
A fool and his money
are soon parted. Absolutely. So but the thing is, some men, they never do learn. They just keep on giving money, and they're in situations, and they grow up with women thinking that you need to give money, or you need to, because the bigger exploitation can be marriage and children too, even more so,
I had a guy here on a dating site who was a widower, and he was supporting like a 24-year-old stripper.
Right.
To get her out of the club. She didn't have to work anymore. She never had sex with him. She didn't even date him. He only would come by once a week, give her money for groceries and rent and everything. And I said to him, you're just, in a nice way, I said, you're enabling her. How is she ever going to go, get a real job or anything?
Right.
As long as and why should she? Why should she look for work if you're, but it was just his thing.
And she probably had a nice young boyfriend she was having sex with all the time anyway.
Well, he lost his wife, and his wife had been an actress, and this girl claimed she wanted to be an actress. So I guess in his mind it was like making up. He was hoping he could, get a future for her and in some way, make up for his wife or whatever.
And he had sexual fantasies with her that were never fulfilled, or romantic fantasies with her that were never fulfilled. And, you have to understand that, and there's people that will move in on you all the time.
And he was smart. He was a lawyer for CBS or something. He was a smart guy. But
a lot of people are just vulnerable when it comes to romance and love and sex and, they don't learn. And the strip clubs and the strippers and the prostitutes are there. Even, women in the, getting married and having kids and stuff like that. This is, how often does that happen? I had a guy who had he was a young kid. He was my friend. He befriended me in my record store, and he had a girlfriend that was always telling him I was on the pill, and evidently she wasn't. And then pretty soon he had a kid, and he was a 21-year-old guy, and basically his life was over. He used to come to me and will show me pictures of girls on his phone. I say, dude, you have a kid now. It's over for you. You don't need to be looking at pictures of girls on your phone. It's the end for you, man. You've got a kid now. You just got to get to work. You've got her at home, and that's all you're going to have the rest of your life, man. So, be happy you have that, because a lot of people don't have that. You know what I mean, too? So, but she basically tricked him and said she was on the pill when she wasn't taking it. She wanted to have a kid and getting married, basically. So, there's all kinds of levels of exploitation out there, and
I know it.
All kinds of men. The first thing I do with a girlfriend is I take her down to the county down there and get her the shot, which is
how long is it good for?
2 years.
No shit.
It's only guaranteed to be good for a year, but it's good for 2 years.
I didn't even know they had such a thing.
The first thing I do is I take them down and tell them you want the shot, okay? And they give you the birth control shot. That's the first thing I do with a girlfriend. Damn. And that's why I do not have a bunch of little rugrats running around right now.
Does that keep you from having a period?
You can actually make your period worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but you can't get pregnant. So that's it. But in some girls, it can make the period worse, and for a while. That's too bad. But that's why I do not have 8-10 children right now, because I would go and get them on birth control. I've also turned down a lot of sex. I've had some girls that really wanted me to have sex with them without a condom and things like that, and just didn't have sex, which is too bad. I regret not having sex with them, but I think that their instinct was, they wanted to get pregnant. I had going out with this woman who was in her late 30s, and she, I think, wanted me to get her pregnant. That was her. I think it was a subconscious thing with her, but luckily I don't have a baby right now.
Yeah.
So, any other tales of working as a go-go dancer in the pre-stripper era?
Let me think. Well, this is going to be in public, so I can't say everything. I just remember that.
Don't reveal things you don't want people to know.
Any other tales? I don't know. It was, I wore glasses from the time I was 6 years old. I was a bookworm. I was a shy little thing. And then, how I got into it is I was, after I graduated from college, those were the days where you were either straight or you were a hippie. And if you were a hippie, you didn't want to be in the straight world. It was like anathema to have a real job. So I graduated from college and I got a job, being a woman, no one had to type. I got some crappy-ass typing job at an office in Boston. I'd moved up to Boston by that time. And I used to eat lunch at the Boston Commons, which is a park. And every day I'd eat my lunch and I'd look at this sign in a bar that said, dancer wanted, no experience necessary. And I'd think about it. And, back then, Goldie Hawn, she started as a go-go dancer.
Right.
Back then, you wore a bathing suit.
Right.
Like a two-piece bathing suit. So one day, and I always had liked to dance. I took ballet when I was a kid. So one day on a lark, I went in and I don't even think they made me dance. It was run by the mafia. And it was in the red light district of Boston called the Combat Zone, which I don't think exists anymore. And I didn't know anything about it. I was from the South. I didn't know it was run by the mafia until later. And they said, great, when do you want to start? And I went in my little bathing suit, and that's how I started my topless career. And then eventually, I did it with pasties because they paid you more money. And I became more uninhibited, and it does kind of make you an exhibitionist. Mm-hmm. And, to go from being a homely little wallflower to finally getting contact lenses when I was 18 to being a sex object, I was in hog heaven, because I got all the attention. And it was back then it was a great job to have because I was a decent dancer and because God gifted me with a nice rack. Mm-hmm. I was able to go to any town I wanted to in the country. Within 2 days I'd have a job dancing, and like I said, they paid a salary, usually in cash, and I made real good money back then. And then, eventually I got tired of doing it. And then it was interesting because I thought, what am I going to put on my resume? You can't, if you want to get an office job or something, you can't put that you were a titty dancer for 8 years. But I figured out a way around it, and I ended up, eventually I ended up teaching school. So, my professional life has gone from A to Z, so to speak.
Right.
And now I'm out here, doing music and comedy.
And did you play piano back then too?
Yeah, I took piano lessons as a little kid for 3 years, and then later on, I graduated in philosophy and English. The first time I went to school, went to English graduate school. I was bored with it because it was just tedious. It was all a little like, what kind of paper did they print this stuff on and all. So I dropped out of graduate school, and then I started taking avocational courses because I whizzed through college so fast, I didn't get a chance to take the fun stuff. So I started taking dance and theater and all that stuff, and I started taking private music lessons taught by the professors. And then I realized, since I already had all my background stuff, with just another 2 years, I could get a degree in music. So I went back and got a degree, and I studied piano in college and voice. And it's tough. I had to practice 3 hours a day just to get a B minus, because the little lady that taught me was a perfectionist. That was her whole life. She was a spinster. Right. And I used to play piano 3 hours a day and practice my voice 2 hours a day.
What's your YouTube channel now?
Oh, it's the Eileen Weiner YouTube channel.
Spell it.
Eileen, and the last name's Weiner, Weiner. It's not monetized, so I don't encourage people to listen to it because I'm making any money off it. I just
You should monetize it, because one of these days, you're going to be singing one of your songs making fun of, whatever scandal is out there, and you just always should have.
Well, I probably will eventually, but I'm just saying that at this point, I just want people to be happy.
The Scandal of the Week song, the Bill Cosby song, the Stormy Daniels song.
Well, I'm glad Cosby's on trial again now, because I can use that song again.
You could do the Cosby trial song. There's lots of stuff you can do, and basically, who knows? One day one will become viral, and then you'll get your money out of that. So make sure you turn on the monetization.
And then I can go up to YouTube if they try to thwart me and have a massacre like that Persian girl.
Right,
kidding.
And get mad. She is just kidding. She's not. She's not going to get mad. She's not going to get mad at them.
I would never ever do that.
So anyway. Any other interesting stories about working as a stripper in the 70s?
Let me think.
Or a go-go dancer?
Let me think. Well, one interesting thing that happened was, since it was run by the mafia, one time, and I worked the day shift when I was working at the Combat Center. I think the place I was working, it was called the Living Room. So I worked from 11 in the morning till 7 at night. And I got off at 7, so it was a great life because the pimps and the hookers didn't come out till then, so it didn't get to be a rough neighborhood.
Right.
And one time a young guy who was part of the organization with a diamond pinky ring came in, and I was also like a folk singer, and I said, I can sing, too. And he said, oh, really? So he sent me up with a band.
Oh, really?
Sight unseen. That's how they do things. Because back then, if you were, well built and a chick, it really didn't matter if you were much of a singer anyway.
You could sing or not.
And to an extent, that's still true. So he sent me down to D.C. to sing with this band, and I toured with the band for a while. And that was kind of cool. That would have never happened if it hadn't been for him.
Right. Well, that's good. It's good to have people within the mafia with connections.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So I think they did to the Combat Zone the same kind of thing they did to Times Square. They cleaned it all up.
It used to be in New York, in the stripper area where they have the strip clubs. A normal strip club, they have these booths, and you go in there inside the booth, and there's a girl behind glass, and you put a tip through, okay? But they're behind glass. But in New York, the glass would go up, and you could touch the girls in there. You couldn't get your body in there, your penis in there, your head in there, anything like that. But you could reach in and actually touch the girls who were there. And it was shortly after that, they shut that down.
Maybe that's where they got to reach out and touch someone commercial.
Yeah, maybe. But that was, when was that? Was that the 90s, the 80s? But anyway, Disney bought that whole block where they had all those things. and they cleaned it all up.
Now you reach out and touch Minnie Mouse, right?
But now, usually like when you go, they still have places like that, but you could actually touch the girls in there. I thought, wow, that's pretty weird. And but they cleaned that up. That didn't last very long. They got it cleaned up. I don't know how they got around the laws for that, but it was some kind of laws. And the men, would be touching the girls with one hand and doing something with their other hand, right?
Yeah.
So that's what was going on there. But usually, you're not allowed to touch the girls behind the glass. So I've heard. I just heard this. You haven't actually done it. Just heard about it.
Sure.
But
another thing too, I lived in New York for about a month after I got to living in Boston, and they had a club up there. I can't remember the name. Oh no, Club O. The name of it was Club O. That's right. And they had all kind of stuff going on. But what I was doing, they had what they called simulated sex shows, which you had absolutely no sex. But they'd all have these stupid little plots. Like I was, I think, maybe 23 or something like that at the time, and I would put my hair in pigtails. I'd be like a little girl in the park, and somebody would, come upon me, and you'd pretend to have sex, but there was nothing, nothing was actually going on. And people would pay to watch the show. And then some of the girls in the thing were hookers, and then afterwards they'd go and booze and they'd hook. But I was just a happy little hippie girl. I was making enough money doing that. So I worked there for like enough time, a few weeks to save up enough money to buy a Martin guitar, and then we got a U-Drive it to California, and I went out to California. Yeah,
my wife said that there were a lot of girls that were hooking in the parking lot where she was working as a stripper, and she said, a lot of the girls, sure, they go out and they hook in the parking lot. She said, she didn't do that, but she said, okay, that's a lot of girls are doing that, and that's their thing, and they're making money, but she's not going to do it unless another girl asked her. If it's a girl that was asking her to hook for her, she would probably do that with another girl because she loved other women, but not with a guy. She wasn't promiscuous at all with guys, but any woman she could get her hands on, she would go for that.
Well, there's one place I worked in Austin. Well, there was something, who Kinky Friedman in. He's pretty famous. His girlfriend was a waitress at Flapjack Canyon, which was a pancake house right across from our work, so I got a chance to meet him. Because after work I'd go in there and eat pancakes, and that was cool. And what else? Oh, another thing too is the club I worked, there was a whole chain of them in Texas. I can't remember what they were called right now. My My clubs, and they were run by some guy named Norman something or other.
Really?
And it had two sides. It had a side where you danced, and the other side where they showed XXX rated movies like The Devil and Miss Jones, and what was that other one? Deep Throat. And you'd like buy a girl a fake bottle of champagne, and they go, and then you can take her to the other side, and the guys think there's like a bed on the other side, so you walk across, and it's nothing but a movie theater.
Right.
And just like you talk about getting jaded, by the time you sit there and watch, this stuff clanging and banging all day long, the last thing you want to do is go home and have sex with your boyfriend.
Right.
But some of the girls in there were also hooking. I was not. And I remember standing there at the bar one day, and the Vice came in there, and they snatched the girl standing next to me and took her off. And I was like sweating bullets because I thought they were going to come for me, but because I wasn't doing that, I never got arrested.
Well, yeah,
but they could have arrested me. They wanted to. They could have arrested
you anyway and just charged you anyway.
Scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, they, it's good that they were fair and didn't just take everyone. And because what they do is they send in undercovers, and they knew the girls beforehand that did that. They're usually single undercover cops.
I was surprised too because that girl was married and had a husband and might even have kids, but I guess she was just doing it for the money.
Those are the worst. Because they also if you have kids too. So what advice would you have working for girls that are strippers now or something like that?
I wouldn't do it the way it is now because they don't now, as far as I know, unless it's changed, and I think it's only changed for the worse. When I got harder for money back maybe 20, 30 years ago, I went back to it, as a middle-aged woman just for a little while, and they didn't pay a salary anymore. You had to tip out the bartender, you had to tip out the bouncer, and you had to tip out the waitress, I think. So basically, you got paid nothing. The only money you made was on tips that they throw money when you're on the stage dancing or if you did lap dances. So, you know, it's a horrible dog eat dog world now. I wouldn't be a part of it. You know, it's, you know, pay me if you want me to work. Pay me.
Right. There's a place down the street on Sunset called the Clown Room.
And there's too many girls willing to do it too.
And they're just in bikinis basically, and the girls are dancers. I don't even think it's topless over there. But they just work off of tips. They throw money on there. There's a lot of girls, a lot of guys watching them, and they throw tips at the girls that dance. And
that's not so bad if you don't have to take your clothes off. And you know, if you can keep your sense of self-esteem, you know, when you're doing that, that's fine. But you know, to some people, it's very demoralizing. And just like she said earlier, a lot of like prostitutes become drug addicts because they can't deal with it. You know, and it's easier just to numb themselves out, and then. What's the sense of doing it? Because all the money goes for drugs. Right.
What's the point? You know, then also I think all women are being told that anytime any man says anything to you sexually, they've done something bad to you.
This is horrible. You can't say a word. They even had Tony Roberts apologizing.
Right. Come on.
Oh my God, Tony Roberts. I mean, not that he isn't a player to begin with, but
now young women are being taught that if a man says anything to you that's romantic or sexual or hints
nice
of romance or even nice, that somehow he's done something bad to you. So I see the result of this basically being a lot of older people that are unhappy and unmarried, you know, and you know, how many marriages is that going to prevent? You know, out there with people meeting in the workplace.
Well, I think this is a phase that will probably pass over.
Yeah.
Just like everything else. Right now, it's a fad.
Right.
You know, it's kind of a fad, and then it'll pass over. But it's odd. It's an odd time to be growing up. I don't know what it would feel like to be a young woman in her 20s in this day and age.
Right.
Everything is so different.
Well, let's say, you know, you're in your 20s.
It's like everything is permitted, you know.
A guy asks you out at where you work, and they end up married. You know, in the 70s. Now a guy asks a girl out at work, and now there's a lawsuit. He loses his job. And he ends up a homeless person, and the woman ends up never getting married and never having kids, or having kids out of wedlock and whatever. You know, it just seems that there's a lot of damage being done. You know, sexuality is part of being human, and it's going to come out either way.
You know what it is too is that you know, women wanted equality and they wanted to be in the workplace with men, and I don't think people, you know, in the beginning foresaw that this was going to raise all these issues. But if they really thought about it, they would have realized it. But I mean, it's a result of that, because we're always going to be different.
And now we're going to have to stop the world because somebody told a dirty joke at work, you know. And it's too bad.
And I really think it's a shame. I mean, I'm absolutely against anybody having something forced on them, but you know, it bothers me that
too.
But it bothers me that like people like Kevin Spacey, who was a respected actor in his field, was accused of something like 30 years ago, and because of that he loses his job. I mean, God, isn't there a statute of limitations?
Yeah, there really needs to be a statute of limitations on this stuff.
And it could be not even he could be judged innocent, but it still ruined his career.
Right, you know, and it could be if somebody makes up something against you.
Yeah.
I understand there was a famous actor, and he had just somebody who was jealous of his relationship, you know, accuse him of all kinds of things, and those things are out there all the time, you know. And I know I'm not a famous person in any way, shape, or form, but people make up junk about me all the time. And, you know, that's just how it is, you know, and just the way it is. You block people. You have to just go block people. There's lots of mentally ill people out there on the internet now who have been no one talks to them in their personal life at all, and now they get a few political catchphrases out there like, you know, whatever it is that's running around, whether it's racial or whether it's sexual, whether it's Me Too or Black Lives Matter or whatever, and they may have no connections to these things before, but suddenly they start using these hip political words, whether they lead to anything good or not, or have some substance behind them or not. And suddenly people think that they're about something and that they matter and are listening to them, as when in their own personal life no one's listening to them at all. And it's just kind of sad, you know, that a lot of these people are out there, and a lot of these people are throwing around a lot of these words and doing this activism online, right? And they're just insane people.
Why don't you tell people about your new gig at Gordoners? Have you mentioned that yet?
We didn't even have to talk about that yet. But, you know, that'll all be on my website where my stuff is. But, you know, I like running a comedy show. I enjoy running a comedy show, and I'm going to continue to do it, you know, and I'm glad that I have a room now again. And at Gordoners, and if that doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But I'll look for another place to do it. But I like this place. We'll see. In fact, we're going to walk down there right now and go take a look at it and see if we can meet the manager. So anyway, this has been Pod Potatoes. I guess we'll have to call this show Stripping and Prostitution and Teenage Prostitution. Chicken strips, chicken hawks, chickens and the chicken hawks. Yeah, I guess it's been an interesting podcast. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for being on here, Eileen Weiner, and StephanieA.IsComedy. You can find her also out there on Twitter and Facebook, and I think maybe on YouTube, and probably at my comedy show coming up. So thanks a lot, people, and we'll see you next time on Pod Potatoes.